Greetings. This is Len Gilbert, and thankfully I'm still on YouTube. So, over the past week or so, due to recent events within the furry subculture, the furry internet subculture, I should say, I've been seeing a lot of remarks on social media from folks saying that they want to completely get out of politics or just completely be apolitical or have nothing to do with any kind of politics in the furry subculture or even society in general. I really don't think that's the right thing to do. I get it. I get why they want to do that. The kitchen's getting pretty hot right now, isn't it? But despite all that, I think it is the wrong thing. And I'd like to talk about that from a practical and a philosophical standpoint today. Maybe you've noticed everything around us is getting political, not just in the furry subculture, but in society in general. It feels that there's increasingly nowhere else to run. Movies, most of them are becoming overtly political. Football games, football's becoming increasingly political. And video games, well, there's no escape there either, and there hasn't been for a while. Everything is splitting into two. Everything is splitting into two camps, and everything is becoming political to the point where there is really just a shrinking amount of space by which to avoid it. And you can see that with recent artist witch hunts within the furry subculture. For the left within this fandom, and probably for the broader culture too, not believing simply isn't enough. Not believing in an ideology they consider bad isn't enough anymore. Merely doing business with the right side leads to a blacklist. Merely associating with them, not even in a political way, but simply taking their order leads to a blacklist. When it comes to the social justice warriors in this subculture right now, you are literally either with them or against them. And if you're not sufficiently with them, they're going to try to ruin your livelihood as an artist. That is not acceptable, in my opinion, and it is not acceptable in the opinion of the majority of artists, from what I understand and from what I've seen. People have to organize. People have to organize against this. They have to stand up against it collectively. And I don't necessarily mean, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that you should join alt furry. And I don't say that because I don't believe in the hard sell. I don't think that's really a good way to do things. What it could mean, in whatever your individual case is, it could mean joining smaller splinter groups. It could mean joining local groups. It could mean forming local groups to resist this kind of stuff. And I would be happy to work with any of those, by the way. But I want to take a step back and look at things from a more philosophical standpoint as to the how and the why to how we got here. Not just in the furry subculture, but in society in general. I think we all kind of, in our bones, feel like our quality of life has been declining, right? And that can be measured in an infinite number of metrics. And there's, to be sure, an infinite number of influences and arguments that can be made. I boil it down to this. I boil it down to our political class, or in the case of the furry subculture, our gatekeepers, doing things that are bad for the general public, but are favored by a small minority of people, a small clique of people, and then repeatedly doing things with that, in that formula again and again and again, and making things progressively worse and worse and worse for all of us. I don't just mean to pick on the left, because it's not just a Democrat thing. The Republicans have done a lot of bad stuff too. Just a couple examples I think that can shed light on this. NAFTA, back in the 90s, the North American Free Trade Agreement, for those who don't know. That was the shaft for millions of Americans, but it benefited a few rich people. It really hurt more people than it benefited, most definitely and undeniably. How did they get away with it? Well, they got away with it because the bulk of people didn't want to get political. They wanted to stay apathetic. Joe Sixpack wanted to keep watching his football games. Another example would be the Patriot Act I wrote down the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act isn't a perfect example because they use fear to achieve it, but that's something the Republicans did. The National Defense Authorization Act of 2011, and look that act up. It is the most hideous piece of legislation I have ever seen in my life. It was something. It was very callously and cynically put into law. President Obama, back in, he repeatedly said he would not sign the NDAA. Repeatedly said that he wouldn't, and then I think it was like either on Christmas night or New Year's night, he went ahead and signed it. And he got away with it. He got away with it because people aren't willing. There's a lot of people that just aren't willing to get political. There are a lot of people that just want to avoid politics, that just want to stay apathetic and watch their ball games and watch their movies and associate with all that other kind of stuff. And now we're here. Now we're at a crossroads. Now the pain for a lot of people is becoming unbearable. But within the furry subculture, I still see a lot of people, some of them prominent, that don't want to get in the game, that just want to stay out. And I get it. I get the feeling. Believe me, more than anyone, I understand the feeling of not wanting to be involved. I guess I'd like to quote Plato, who said that the price of not getting involved in politics is to be ruled over by those who are inferior to you. And that's very true. I think recent history, both with it, certainly in the furry subculture, that is definitely and absolutely true. You have to get off the sideline, because soon there will be none. And while you may not be interested in politics, politics are interested in you. Thanks for being with me again today.